I am going to start this presentation by saying something that may be very offensive to all of you, okay? I hope this is offensive to you all. You are not the center of the universe, okay? I'm going to prove this to you. You offended? Tavia, you offended? What? Tavia is not the center? I am going to show you 20 ways that you may think that you are the center of the universe, and you ain't, all right? Here we go. So first of all, take a look at the world map. Do you know that there are more people living inside the circle than everything else outside the circle? Think about that. We think about like the US as being such a populated country. The entire rest of the world is not as populated as inside the circle. Let's look at this one. If I were to divide up the world into 7 equal sections, each with around 1 billion people, take a look at US, Canada, Mexico, all of Central America, all of South America, Greenland, Iceland, and Australia is equal to just that. That's India and a small piece of Asia, countries like Myanmar. Part of China, just a piece of China and Japan is equal to all of this landmass in terms of population. The black dots on this map are cities, and let me just be clear to you all, cities, not metroplexes, not cities, individual cities with 1 million or more people. Take a look at where all the black dots are. Of here, yeah? If we were to just look at population density, so how many people live in certain land masses, I mean, we actually don't have a very densely populated country, right? Look at population density. Take a look at Australia. This blows me away. 98% of people live right here. 2% of the entire population lives in all of this part of the country, the outback. Check this out. If you take away one flight route in South Africa to South Africa, and one flight route from Brazil to Brazil, the top 7 most busy flight routes are all Asia. Short duration Asian flights. Most popular, busiest air travel routes. Okay, check this out. Alcohol. We're going to talk about alcohol. We're going to talk about sex. We're going to talk about coffee. All our favorite topics, right? So, alcohol consumption. We are absolutely a moderately drinking country, okay? We rank kind of in the middle. Look at cold weather, right? And lots of Europe, Western Europe too, but certainly Russia. Look at cold weather climates. Look at how much the alcohol consumption is in cold weather climates, right? And then also look at countries that have Muslim populations, right? Where the predominant religion is Islam, and the alcohol consumption plummets, right? Look at alcohol consumption by popularity of drink. So first of all, we're a beer country, okay? In fact, all of North America, South America, beer people. Take a look at these two little countries, Spain, no, not Spain, Italy? France and Italy, yeah? Wine, of course, right? France and Italy, right? Of course. And then of course, Russia and Scandinavia and lots of Eastern Europe, spirits. And the Caribbean, by the way. Don't forget the whole Caribbean, spirits. Why? Because it's a local, it's an ethnocentric product, right? Many of those Caribbean islands make their own whatever, rum, etc. Okay, coffee. So again, the United States, we're kind of like smack dab in the middle of coffee consumption. Look at colder weather climates, right? So there's Scandinavia, Denmark, Sweden, Finland. And then look at places like Europe and South America. Coffee is part of the culture, and therefore coffee consumption, huge. Okay? McDonald's consumption specifically, let's take a look. You guys, we have, in this case, we are the center of the universe, right? We have 13,000 McDonald's restaurants in this country. There's only 600 in China, okay? Think about that, but their population's 3 times the size of the United States. And then look at the price of an average burger in these countries. Price of US around $4. Price of like Norway, Denmark, like double, almost double, right?
That's the prices right there.
driving orientations. Check this out. Almost the entire world drives on the, what is it? The right side, yeah. Except for this little country here, which is United Kingdom. It's England, Scotland, what else? Wales, right? And then any other country that country has colonized, right? So England colonized Southern Africa, India, all of this part.
What's in South America in blue?
I don't even know, Colombia? Not sure. Look it up for me. I'm not 100% sure what country that is.
Because I didn't know that there was a country in
That
South
there's
America.
one South American country that drives on the opposite side. And a quick way to research that is like, what South American country did England colonize? That might be the answer to the question. We'll come back to you, okay? How about the average age of first sexual intercourse by country? So again, United States, we're kind of in the middle. The average age of first sexual intercourse around 18 years old. Take a look at these cold weather countries, man, right? Norway, Denmark, Sweden. Do you guys know in the winter they have 24 hours of darkness? And in the summer they have 24 hours of light? It's pretty crazy stuff. I have been in these countries in July when it is bright for like almost 24 hours a day. It's like the weirdest thing. They call it the white nights. And it literally is white nights. They lose their virginity, how old? 15, right? Years before, countries like India. We're going to talk later about India. India is a really important country for us to figure out. Any answer?
I don't know if I'm pronouncing it right, but it's Guyana. I haven't
Guyana.
I haven't even
Guyana.
really aware of it.
Interesting. Okay, me neither. No, but it must be an English, formerly colonized English country. Interesting. Okay, how about, let's get down to like our written language. Forget about the language you speak. Let's talk about the alphabet that we actually write. There's like 7 or 8 alphabets in the world. Think about that. How many other countries can't even read our alphabet? Or I really should pose that question a different way. How many other countries can we not read their alphabet, right? So, think about the different alphabets. Here's another one that we are not the center of the world on. We are one of only 3 countries that do not use the metric system. Okay, right? Like we use inches and feet and what else? Fahrenheit, right? You guys, you see this little tiny country here? That's Liberia. And this country here is Myanmar. You probably see a lot of your clothing made there. We are the only 3 countries in the world that use the whatever the heck system is that we've got. I forget what it's called. What's it called? The not metric system. What's it called? Look it up. Opposite of metric system. Forgot what it's called. Look it up. Google it for me. Okay, here's one that I totally slipped my mind. I was in Europe a couple weeks ago. Our electric current is not the only electric current, right? You all have plugs that have the 2 square prongs, the rectangular prongs. Well, guess what? In Europe, they're on this type C EF prong. They're circular. Can't even plug your shit in, okay? You gotta have an adapter. What is it?
Imperial.
Imperial, thank you. It sounds British, right? It's the imperial system. That's the opposite of metric system. Only 3 countries use the imperial system. Okay, so even how we think about electricity, the electric current, is different in lots of different parts of the world. Let's think about who imports from where. So, okay, yeah, we think of the major importer or exporter is China, but that's not always true for every country, right? Think about China. So much of what they import is from Japan. Think about the US, Canada, Mexico, and a lot of South America. Their #1 import is American. We forget that, don't we? We forget that America does export. And these countries absolutely, and this one, Egypt, not one I know, import from the United States. We are their #1 exporter. Look at psychiatrists per 100,000 people. Again, I rest my case. The further north you go, the more demand there is for sex, drinking, coffee, and psychiatry, okay? So maybe we should consider ourselves lucky that we live, relatively closer to the equator, right? So you look at these countries, there's a lot more demand for psychiatrists. How about sports? So in Texas, we think football, 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 yeah? But most of the United States, well, actually, most of the United States is football.
I love that football, soccer, I guess the green one is soccer, right?
Green one is soccer, yes, which is football, not American football, yes? El football is not American football, right? But the point I want to make is that not the entire United States is football country. Look at the East Coast. The East Coast, folks, is baseball. Baseball. I would never hear about football in New York. Never. Baseball, right? But look at most of the world. Look at the green. Soccer. Yeah, soccer. Most of the world is soccer. Okay. Death penalty. So we can look at, like, from a political perspective. United States, we're kind of here, so it's still a legal form of punishment. Count for me the other countries that are pink. I mean, we're talking just the Middle East and Eastern Africa, Northeastern Africa. Most of the world has, to most extent, no form of death penalty, okay? Religion. So here's the United States and Canada. We are primarily a Protestant Christianity. Compare that to all of the Catholicism across Europe. Compare that to Islam. Where's Islam? And remember, there's not one kind of Islam. There's Sunni, there's Shiite, there's a number of different types of Islam across so much of Africa and the Middle East, right? So, in terms of growing religious populations, it's not Christianity, yeah? Christianity makes up about less than a third of the entire world in terms of religious population, less than a third, okay? But in our country, it's easy to think like, man, 99% of people are Christians. Not true. Not true in terms of the world population. Okay, so before I get on, what's my point? Go ahead.
I was gonna say global branding.
Yeah. My point is that you are not the center of the world, right? And, we have to get out of thinking about things in terms of like, the way I see it in my little corner of the world is the way the world is, because that just isn't the case, right? I showed that to you in terms of sports, in terms of sex, in terms of coffee, so we got to get out of that mindset. Okay, with that said, I'm going to give you another example of how we are not the center of the world. Do you all understand that our GDP, and let's have one quick 30-second review from Business Principles that you took 1,000 years ago. Do you remember what GDP is, gross domestic product? What is gross domestic product? What is it a measure of?
The most stuff we need?
Yeah, beautiful. I'll take that answer. How much stuff a country makes in a year, okay? And by stuff, we mean goods and services. Okay, so our GDP as a country is not up there in the top GDP. Do you understand that? We are not the top growing producers of things. You probably get that. Okay, 65% of the world is living in places where the GDP is growing by 5% or more. And I want to tell you the number one country in the world for GDP growth, Ghana. Ghana. And also up there is Zambia. And I want to tell you about these countries. Ghana, Zambia, Ethiopia, India for sure. These countries are producing GDP that is in demand. And they produce things like copper. Let's talk about copper for a second. Why is copper so important? Well, let me see your phones. Take out your phones. Do you know what one of the most important raw ingredients is in making your phone work? Copper, okay? And copper is being produced by these countries, and the demand for it is making these countries' economies grow, okay? So, we are not living in an economy that is growing, that has a GDP growth of 5% or more. No, our GDP is somewhere like 2.5%. But these countries like India, we're going to talk about India later, they are growing by leaps and bounds. Okay, did everybody get a square card? You didn't need a square card?
Oh, yeah.
All right. Everybody get a square card? All right, cool. So, let me explain to you what we are going to do, black or white, for your project. What about you, Jody? Black or white for your project?
Right.
Here you go. So, let me explain to you what we are going to do for you, with this square card. I have been doing this every year for the last 5 years or so. Did you just put your sticker on your laptop?
Yeah,
Oh, I like it. Beautiful. Do whatever you want with your stickers. You can peel it off and stick it somewhere. But I've been doing this every year for the last 5 years. I've been showing the top 100 global brands, okay? And this agency always puts this little video together. And here's what I want you to do. I'm gonna show this video, it's about 3 minutes long, and it is a pretty quick, rapid fire list from the top 100 to number 1 global brands. Together, I want you all to count the number of non-American brands. So what I'm asking you is, how many of these 100 brands are not American, okay? And you're gonna write your answer down. You can make tick marks if you want on the little square, and then you can circle what your answer is. If you are correct within five, I'll give you double points, okay? I've already gone through this video. I do it every year, and I've counted. You know what's interesting? I'm just gonna tell you, the number is actually down a few from last year. I'll tell you later what the number was last year. And actually, the number of international brands is down a few, okay? You'll be interested to see which countries are in this list that are outside of the United States, okay? Does everybody understand what we're doing? We are going to count the number of global brands, international brands, non-American brands in this list of the top 100 brands. You can make tick marks if you want, follow along because it moves really fast, and then write your number down, okay? Here we go. Are you ready? Ready? got to the top 10, I saw your heads go up and down a lot less, yeah? Because a lot of the top 10 were American, okay. So I'm gonna give you a second. Go ahead and tally your answers. Please write your name on the card so I can grab those from you. And then I'm going to ask you guys, I wrote down every single company on this piece of paper that is global. And I just want to ask you, some of you probably think some of these companies are American and they're not. So I just want to get a sense of what you think. But like I said, feel free to keep the sticker. If you want to pull the sticker off, you're welcome to throw that on something. If you don't want to, you don't have to. But everybody's got to get their total in, make sure your name is on it, and I'll grab it from you when you are ready. Didn't want your stickers? Okay. All right.
I was actually counting the American ones, so I did it backwards.
Some of the banks.
Okay, I can't think of
Some of the
sticker on.
Intel and stuff, but I don't.
Really fancy. It's not really realistic.
Yeah, yeah.
I like it though.
I don't know what to put.
All right, yeah, I see some good answers, no doubt. I definitely don't see itty bitty tiny answers. And I also don't see 99, so that's good. Everybody's in the ballpark. All right, so let me ask you this. How many of you, raise your hand if you think the following companies are American? And I'm gonna just start from 100. Adidas, raise your hand if you counted Adidas as American. They are German. Raise your hand if Aldi / Trader Joe's, raise your hand if you thought they were American. They're German. Yeah. Commonwealth Bank is Australian.
Yeah, I know that's not fair.
IKEA, you all know that's Swedish. Okay, good. How about companies like BMW? German. Mercedes? German. Gucci? Italian. Yeah. L'Oreal?
Paris.
Legitimately a French company. Yes, ma'am. Toyota?
That's it. Asian.
Japanese. Yep. Samsung obviously is Korean, South Korean. Chanel is French. The consulting company Accenture is Irish, from Ireland. SAP is German. Alibaba is Chinese. Louis Vuitton is Chinese. JD Bank is Chinese. TD Ameritrade, raise your hand if you thought that was American. All right, it's Canadian. How about that? Okay, did I get a card from everybody?
No.
All right, so the answer is, I am. Did I get a card from everybody? The answer is 43. Yes. Yes. The answer is 43. So if you're 5 away, so 5 under, 5 over, I'll give you double points. How many of you got close to 43? A lot of you were. Okay, what's my point? My point is, and by the way, when we did this last year, the answer was 50 on the nose, 50. So actually there's a few less global brands in this top 100 valuation category, probably because the American economy is so strong that our companies right now, they're just worth more, all right? But my point is that there are many, many, many brands in 2 big markets that I really can think of, China and Germany, yeah, that really do give American brands a run for their money, and many of us have almost accepted them as American brands, right? Companies like Adidas, companies like Aldi, we almost think of them as like domestic. IKEA, think of them as domestic brands, but they're not, okay? All right, so when I ask you tonight on the quiz, are most global brands American, the answer is no, they're not, right? Only about half of all of the brands in the global Okay, cool. Moving along. I got a video thing. I want to talk about why it makes sense for companies to be global. Why it makes sense for a company to expand to another country. I just want to make 2 quick points here. One is economies of scale. Do you guys know what that concept means? It's really important. It's an important business concept. It's an important marketing concept. Economies of scale. Have you heard of this term before?
Yes.
Yes? What do you know about it? What does it mean? Coca-Cola is a bad example of economies of scale. But IKEA is a good example of economies of scale. What does it mean, economies of scale? Who can explain it? You just heard the term before?
Yeah.
Okay. So, in a nutshell, the way I always explain it, I use the same lame example, is baking cupcakes. All right? So if you were to go home tonight and bake a dozen cupcakes, how much would it cost? What would you need to buy and how much would it cost?
$8 to $10.
I think that's a fair or reasonable assessment. What do you need to buy to bake a dozen cupcakes? Flour, eggs, milk, sugar. Great. Okay, fine. So you'll probably spend $10, right? How much would it cost you to bake 100 cupcakes?
A lot more than
A lot more or a little more?
Said 100.
Mm-hmm. So let me ask you. We're going to go and buy a bag of flour, and that flour is going to make us a dozen cupcakes, but that same bag of flour might also make us 100 cupcakes, agree? And yeah, we might need a little bit more eggs, but the cost of baking 100 cupcakes is only incrementally more. Do you agree? Okay, so what is economies of scale? It's the more you produce of something, the cheaper it is per unit. Write that down. Economies of scale. The more you produce of something, the cheaper it is per unit. Okay, so that is true for IKEA, right? The more bookshelves IKEA produces, the cheaper it is per unit, right? And IKEA can pass off that savings. And pretty much IKEA is selling throughout the world essentially the same product. Agree? It's the same sofas and the same bookshelves and the same whatever the case is, okay? So IKEA, the more it expands, the more it enters new countries, the bigger its distribution gets, the better economies of scale it has. The more it produces, the cheaper it is per unit. Okay, we get that, right? Like, that's product development 101. The more you make of something, the cheaper it is. For Coca-Cola, that's not true. Because every time Coca-Cola enters a new country, what is Coca-Cola doing?
Playing into their market.
Yes. It is not the same formula, and it's not always the same packaging, and it's not always the same distribution method, and it's not always the same business model. So every time Coca-Cola enters a new country, it isn't exactly benefiting from economies of scale, because it's not selling the exact same product in every country. Okay? So generally speaking, economies of scale is a great benefit to expanding whatever your brand is globally. Okay, that's one point I wanted to make. The other point is getting there first. Let's talk about that on the next slide. Getting there first. What are the benefits about getting there first, preempting international competitors from entering domestic markets and avoiding lockout? You know, what happens when Starbucks is the first foreign coffee company in a country? What happens when Heineken is the first foreign beer company in a country, when Kraft is the first foreign packaged food company in a country? What happens?
Exclusive, like everyone wants to try.
Maybe. Especially if the country that it comes from has a positive connotation. Think about coffee. Does America have a positive connotation when it comes to coffee? Not really. We're not really known as a coffee economy. We're not really known as a coffee country. We don't even make coffee beans here, right? So when Starbucks enters another country, it kind of does not have a leg up, aside from the gazillions of dollars it has, right? The country that it comes from doesn't exactly help the market, right? Versus being an Italian coffee brand or a French coffee brand or a Brazilian coffee brand, right? Where coffee is an ethnocentric part of the culture. But what are the benefits? What are the benefits to being the first?
Like the brand presence is stronger. Like people are more connected, I guess.
Connected to it, receptive to it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. And what does the brand get to do?
Recreate itself.
Kind of, yeah. Establish itself as the preeminent source of that product, right? Create loyalty early, yeah. Possibly create generations of loyalty early, right? One of the things that we talked about, one of the emotional connections people have to brands is not just trust, but nostalgia. Do you remember us talking about that? Nostalgia. And what is nostalgia? Nostalgia is, oh, I remember that at my grandma's house, right? And so when you are the first brand, what do you get to create? A new connection with the generation. I think we talked about this before, but let me bring this up as an example. Do we talk about Disney? Did I ask you guys, when you think of Disney, what characters come to mind? What are the prototypical characters of Disney for you? Mickey Mouse? Did everybody just say that?
Yeah.
Almost everybody said Mickey Mouse. Okay. You know why? Because you were all exposed to Disney at the beginning of its existence. If you ask Japanese people of any generation, what are the prototypical Disney characters, you know what they're going to tell you? Lion King. Why? Because Disney got introduced in Japan when Lion King was brand new, period, globally. And so the very first characters they were introduced to was Lion King, not Mickey and Minnie. See that?
Mm-hmm.
So again, when you are the first, they were the first kind of, foreign cartoon anime brand, you have this generational connotation. So, being the first, entering the domestic market, avoiding lockout, loyalty, trust, nostalgia, connecting with multiple generations, all of these things are benefits, okay? And that was my Disney story. Okay, I want to go back 1 second to something we mentioned. Positive connotations, positive associations with the country of origin. Okay, so let's play a little game here, okay? Can you think of a country and a product that country has a positive association with? What I'm asking is, the best blank comes from blank country.
Like Swiss Army knife?
Great.
Switzerland?
Or Swiss watch.
Yeah.
Or anything that has to do with like exact stuff. The Swiss are known for. Chocolate too, not that that has anything to do with exact, but Swiss chocolate, Swiss Army knife, Swiss watches, right? Switzerland has this kind of monopoly on like exacting. What else?
Like fragrance from grass or something. Is it grass?
Grasse,
Grassy?
France,
Grass.
yeah? So I was literally just in Grasse, which is in Provence in France. So sure, but I would go general, the country is France. And so yes, fragrance from France, absolutely. And soap and, and cosmetics and fashion, right? What else you got?
Italian leather.
Definitely Italian leather, Italian pasta, Italian pizza, right? We could argue Italian cars, but when you think of cars, what country do you think of?
Germany.
Germany.
I
Yeah?
was gonna say like the Asian country.
Well, Italian if you're thinking supercars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What are we thinking?
Ferrari.
Lamborghini. What else you got? Porsche? Or are they German?
Porsche's German.
German, yeah. Okay, so I'm with you on that. But I think generally Germany's got the angle on cars. Because don't forget Volkswagen comes from Germany too, yeah?
Mm-hmm.
What else you got? Pick a country.
Champagne.
From?
France.
There is only one place that champagne can legally come from. If it's not from France, it cannot be called champagne. You know that, right?
Right.
It is sparkling wine if it comes from somewhere else. Champagne can only be called champagne if it comes from, technically, Champagne, France. It cannot be labeled as champagne if it doesn't come from Champagne.
So a gas station wine.
Not exactly. I mean, look,
Where did that come from though?
it could be American, it could be Italian, it could be whatever, but it isn't champagne unless it comes from France. Yeah. Now, I'm not saying that they don't sell, plenty of gas stations sell super high-end stuff. This is Dallas, right? But
Right.
it can only be called champagne if it comes from France. What else you got? How about Brazil? Talked about that.
The
Coffee.
butt lips?
Oh.
Oh.
What else you got?
I said butt lips.
Buttless.
Butt
Brazilian butt lips.
Brazilian and Brazilian waxing too, right?
Yeah.
Okay. How about Poland? Does anybody know, maybe interior designers do, what Poland? No, Russia. Russia for fur.
I
Yeah.
was gonna say vodka for Russia.
It's that too.
Yeah.
What is it?
Vodka. For Russia.
Okay. Glass.
From where?
Oh.
The best glass comes from
What
Poland.
was that? Why?
I don't know. Well, I know glass is made from sand, and I don't know if they have an abundance of sand or if there's something with the culture. I'm not really sure why. But Poland is the best glass is known to come from Poland. I don't know why. What else you got?
Avocados from Mexico.
Avocados from Mexico.
Literally that
Yeah.
advertisement.
Absolutely, agree. And tequila.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
And by the way, just like champagne can't not come from champagne, tequila cannot come from anywhere but tequila.
It's
Tequila
interesting,
Mexico.
like, I'm from Mexico, I've never been to Tequila, and I will be going at the end of September.
You going?
So
Interesting. Where is it? It's inland, right?
it's in Guadalajara.
Yeah. Cool. I have to tell you, I just sampled the most amazing tequila the other night, just since we're on the topic. It's George Clooney's company.
Oh, yes, and it's so
Casamigos.
sad, it's so sad that it's American, it's just because it's like soft.
It's
and
really delicious.
It
Wow.
it's just as strong, but it doesn't feel strong.
Is it really American?
Yes.
Okay, not made in Mexico?
Well, let's just say he just partnered with people from Mexico that knew how to do tequila
Okay.
and just did it the way he would like it.
Gotcha. Well, it's delicious. Clooney knows how to make a tequila. All right? Okay, anyway, so my point was that sometimes we want to brand our country because the country represents a positive association, a positive connotation, and sometimes it doesn't, okay? Sometimes I like to think that Starbucks downplays the fact that it's an American coffee company because it doesn't benefit from it, right? Especially in places like Latin America where there was like a resistance to like what, you know, I use the example like, you know, you would never be a Chinese company selling pizza in Italy, right? Same concept. Okay, now, next I want to talk about. So much of what we talked about in this class is like consistency, right? Your brand should always be the same, the language should be the same, the logo, the font. We talked last week about integrated brand marketing. Sometimes all of that is not true when we are marketing to another country. Sometimes we have to make changes. And that's what I want to talk about, okay? So first I want to talk about what should never change from country to country. And then I want to talk about what should change, okay? So let's talk about what should not change. When we are an American company and we are launching another country, if these things need to change, then we should not be in that country. The corporate brand, the brand identity system, and brand essence. Let's review what these three things mean and why they should not change. And why, if they need to change, we have no business being in that country. What is the corporate brand?
The structure of the company.
Okay, and specifically? So, for example, did I ever tell you the story about the Chevy Nova? Yeah, the Chevrolet Nova, yeah? So, people say that this is like a marketing like hearsay, but I'm pretty sure it happened. Chevrolet launched a car, it was called the Nova, and they marketed it to Latin America, Chevrolet Nova. And if you interpret Nova in Spanish, it means don't go, don't run, doesn't work, Nova. Not a cute name for a car, agree? Not so cute. Okay, so Nova is the sub-brand. Chevrolet is the parent brand. And who owns Chevrolet? GMC is the corporate brand, okay? So if the corporate brand, for whatever reason, the parent corporation, does not have a good connotation in the country, doesn't translate to the country, we need not be there. We can change the sub-brands. We can make the Chevrolet translate something into the appropriate language. But if the corporate brand doesn't make sense for the country, we should not be there. Corporate brand should not change. What is brand identity system? Actually, you're looking at brand identity system here. What is a brand identity system? The font, the color, the packaging, right? The vibe, the feel. And you can see even in different languages, Coca-Cola pretty much retains its brand identity system. Agree? Mm-hmm. Okay. And then what is brand essence?
The heart and soul of the
Yeah. Like if you're Disney and you stand for fun family entertainment, if there is a country that really there's no market for fun family entertainment, should Disney be there?
No.
No, of course not. right? Disney is not gonna go off and do something that's gonna jeopardize what it's, okay. So these are the three things that they're deal breakers, okay? The corporate brand should always be consistent. It should represent what it represents. The identity system, really, like Coca-Cola is known as the red cola drink, right? And then the heart and soul of the company, that those things shouldn't change. What should change? Before I even go to the next slide, what should change? What should change country by country, depending on that country's culture?
Language.
Yeah, or price.
One of my favorite parts of the chapter. Language. Let me read you.
Whoa.
Let me read some of this to you. It's so freaking good, you're gonna die. Let me read to you some actual mistakes companies have made translating their slogans. Coors, turn it loose. Remember Coors, turn it loose? In Spanish it reads, suffer from diarrhea. Coca-Cola, when it first got translated, it read Kikukula in Chinese, which meant bite the wax tadpole, or female horse stuffed with wax. You want me to drink female horse stuffed with wax? Then it researched 40,000 characters to find a different equivalent to Coca-Cola, which ultimately translated to happiness in the mouth. That's a perfect brand name.
Yeah.
Yeah.
To get Coca-Cola to translate to happiness in the mouth, rock on, but not bite the wax tadpole. In Italy, Schweppes tonic water translates to Schweppes toilet water. Pet condensed milk, you know the red and white can? In French, the word pet means to fart. Fart condensed milk. This one's a good one. So when the Pope came to Miami, an American t-shirt company accidentally translated the term I saw the Pope. Pope in Spanish is El Papa, to I saw La Papa, the potato. I saw the potato. Oops, like super disrespectful. Salem cigarettes. Is Salem feeling free? You know the Japanese, like to this day, love to smoke. When we watch a video later, like that even comes up. When smoking Salem, you will feel so refreshed that your mind seems to be empty. That's the Japanese translation, all right? Frank Perdue, do you all remember Perdue? It takes a strong man to make a tender chicken. That was an old logo for Perdue for many years. In Spanish, it takes an aroused man to make a chicken affectionate. That is not cheap, okay? Jolly Green Giant in Arabic is intimidating green ogre. This is a good one. In Chinese, KFC, finger looking good, eat your fingers off. Pepsi, come alive with the Pepsi generation. In Chinese was Pepsi brings your ancestors back from the grave. Like, you mean to tell me nobody in the entire marketing department at Pepsi was a local Chinese speaker that could effectively translate a slogan? And the answer is obviously no. The American Dairy Association got milk. In Spanish, in Mexico, it translated, are you lactating? And then Parker Pen marketed a ballpoint pen to Mexico. The ad was supposed to say, it won't leak in your pocket. And instead it said, the word embarazar does not mean embarrass, it means to impregnate. So the ad read, it won't get you pregnant. The pen won't get you pregnant.
I might have to buy that. It's just too funny to even think about it.
I mean, how dumb, right? But these are just like, you know, little things. Okay, side note. Have you guys seen the controversy in the news this week about a whole bunch of different companies that have made mistakes about certain countries? Have you seen this in the news this week? So a bunch of companies like Zara, I forget which ones they were, I should have done my research, said stuff like the country of Hong Kong. And Hong Kong is technically not a country, it is a principality of China, okay? And so it offended the Chinese. And you can Google it, you can read, there's a bunch of things. So things like that, understanding like the cultural significances of naming things that like aren't a country is a big deal. Okay, now I want to talk about things that we need to consider when marketing globally. So the point I just made is language. okay? It is not enough to just understand how to translate something. What do we need to understand?
The slang.
Yes, yes. The local language, colloquialisms. We need to understand how to speak in a local tongue, not in like Google Translate. You ever do Google Translator?
Yeah.
And you get back something like, that's not really where, you ever go on Instagram and you translate something and the translation's like, that's not really what that says. We need to be able to speak in local language. You guys, you would not believe how many companies get this wrong. I mean, I just showed you a whole list of that, right? We need to speak in a local tongue. We need to be able to do marketing in a local tongue. Okay, the other example I want to explain to you, I'm going to tell you an IKEA story, is different consumption patterns. So let me just go to my IKEA story. I'm not going to show you this video, I'm just going to tell you the story quickly. So IKEA, some years ago, launched for the first time in India, okay? And they chose a bunch of big Indian cities, Bangalore and Mumbai, to launch stores. And you all know IKEA, when they put a store up, IKEA is a home run, yes? In like every country in the world, there's demand for IKEA, Swedish-based company. These IKEAs in India failed, all of them, okay? Why? Do you know?
Agriculture.
Yes, that is the answer. What did IKEA need to know? And why did they fail in India? What did they need? What research did they need to do? So let's dissect this. Who's the target audience of IKEA for pretty much the whole world over? For pretty much the whole world
College
over.
students or new families or people
Absolutely.
that are barely starting their own home.
100%. New home nesters, okay? IKEA is not furniture that you are buying in your 50s, right? IKEA is when you're young and on a budget and, you know, maybe this is the first time you're out of the house and maybe you're a college student, maybe not. Okay, what is the problem with IKEA's launch in India? Well, here's what the problem was. They did not study consumption patterns. In India, okay, what I'm about to tell you has been true for a gazillion years except for maybe the last 5. Young people did not move out of their house into their bachelor pad. Young people did not move out into their like starter apartment. There was no such thing, okay? What did younger people do?
Stay home, stay home.
Yes, exactly. Girl would stay in the parents' household, right, until she was ready to get hitched, get married, and then move in with whom? Let me think about this. I gotta think about this. I forget who, anybody of Indian culture here? No? Who moves into with who?
The girl moves in with the guy.
I'm not 100%. Yeah, I think the girl, the wife, moves in with the husband's family. I'm pretty sure. Pretty sure that's the gig, okay? So think about that. There isn't really a need for this kind of like lower end disposable furniture because there's no bachelor pad. With me? There is no, but IKEA did not really do the deep dive into the culture to understand that, okay? So there was no need for it. Most people in Indian cultures in India, up until the last 5 years, have been passing on family heirloom furniture and, right? And like, there was no such thing as buying this like quick disposable furniture, okay? That has changed in the last 5 years. Younger people are starting to kind of move out and live on their own, especially in bigger cities. But IKEA missed the mark on that. And they wound up closing a bunch of stores in these big Indian cities. And now they're slowly starting to come back. Okay, so that was this thing. We need to be able to understand how, do you all understand what this term consumption patterns are? Yes? A consumption pattern is how you buy it, how you use it, why you buy stuff, what your lifestyle is, what the purpose is, okay? And IKEA is a great example of how they didn't understand consumption patterns of young people in India. I'm gonna show you guys a video at the end of this lecture, short lecture, about Starbucks in their first international expansion to Japan. But I'm gonna give you some spoilers, okay? So the Japanese love to smoke, okay? Publicly. Blow the smoke in your face. What is Starbucks policy internationally?
No smoking.
No smoking. No smoking. Smoke-free zone. Okay, strike number one. Strike number two. 80% of Starbucks business is to go. Yes?
Yeah.
Carry out, to go. We love drive-through here. We drive, right? Okay. In Japan, the idea of eating or drinking in public, on the go, is a no-no. You would lose face. You are a disrespectful human being for doing such a thing. Okay? We take it for granted because it's just not our culture. We're cool with, like, you know, the latte on the run. How many of you eat your entire lunch on the run or dinner on the way here on the run? Yes? Right? You just don't do that in Japan. Strike two. Okay? What else about consumption patterns? You and I, less so in Texas, are used to much bigger environments. More so in Texas. Yes, bigger environments. You walk into these places with supermarkets that are super, yeah? And Starbucks that are giant. And in Japan, things are really small, right? So the idea of like this giant piece of real estate where you've got baristas and tables and not so common. Three. All right. So Starbucks studied. They were no joke. They spent millions of dollars conducting market research to study all of this stuff. And yet, and all the signs were telling them, no, this is going to fail. And they went ahead anyway. Does anybody know what happened? Because IKEA did no research, went ahead, dropped their anchor, and failed. Anybody know what happened with Starbucks in Japan? No. We'll have to watch the video and find out. By the way, if you don't know who Howard Schultz is, let me just show you real quick. We're almost there. That's Howard Schultz, former chief executive officer, CEO of Starbucks, and he also wrote this amazing book, Onward. He just retired last year. He just stepped down. I don't even know who the new CEO is, but he's going to tell the story of Starbucks' first international expansion to Japan. It's a good story. He tells it really well, although I kind of spoiled a piece of it for you already. Okay, so that's what I want to get. Language, consumption patterns, the law varies, what you can sell and how you can sell it and how you market it. And sometimes the law and religion are one thing. You get that, yes? In a lot of Middle Eastern countries, the law and the religion are one thing. We need to understand both of those things, okay? Alcohol, illegal. The sale of alcohol can be illegal in countries. We have to understand that. And then the regulatory environment. What does the government do in each country to regulate the distribution of products? We need to understand that stuff. You guys, the state of California is like its own country in terms of regulatory environment. You want to sell a good or a service to California, they have a laundry list of things that you have to comply with. A lot of brands choose not even to bother to sell to California because there's too much red tape. Okay? So we have to understand. Okay. When should the brand name stay the same? And when should we actually change the brand name? The brand name. I don't mean the parent company, I don't mean the brand itself, but sometimes a brand name needs to change. So, keep the brand name if there's no intrinsic meaning and it's easy to pronounce. No intrinsic meaning and it's easy to pronounce. Coca-Cola. What kind of brand name is that?
Coin.
Yes, ma'am. What makes coin?
Is this not in the dictionary?
Yeah, no intrinsic meaning, right? It doesn't have an intrinsic meaning that you could look up, okay? If our brand was Toys R Us, that is an intrinsic meaning. What kind of name is Toys R Us? Which, God bless them, they're back. 2 stores and counting. What kind of name is Toys R Us? Yeah, associative descriptive, that's exactly right. We count on the brand name meaning something, yes? So if we want to go into another country, what should we do with a brand name like Toys R Us? Translate it, absolutely. We count on its meaning, so we should translate it, okay? Coca-Cola doesn't mean anything in any language, right? We have to invest money in giving it meaning, okay? So, keep it if there's no intrinsic meaning, if it's easy to pronounce, if there's already global awareness of what the brand is. Translate it if, really what I'm getting at here is translate it if it's associative descriptive, right? If the brand name describes some kind of benefit, then we probably need to translate it into that language. The brand needs to get translated. The design, the aesthetic, the system and design aspects, that should stay the same, but the language itself should be translated. Okay, I'm ready to, one last slide and then I'm ready to show you this video that I'm excited about. We already talked about this. What are the benefits of getting there first? Well, actually, here's one other benefit. How about these countries that I told you about with rapidly growing gross domestic product? What happens when a country's economy is growing for the first time? What happens when a country's economy has a spiked gross domestic product? What's created?
Demand.
Yeah? From whom?
From the consumers and that,
Which ones?
the external consumers,
I'm not sure what that means.
like the ones that are not like in the country.
No. In a country, when a country's economy really booms, okay, especially for the first time, and let's say you have a country that has a less developed economy, and now it's a developing economy, and gross domestic product is growing, and therefore that country is producing more and they're exporting more, and you guys said there's more demand for goods and services.
So then it needs a
Demand from whom?
Outside.
No,
No?
consumers of that same country.
Which
Because-
ones?
The ones benefiting.
And who are they?
The business.
You're warmer. What does a developing country with a developing economy have that a less developed country with an underdeveloped economy not have? Good. That's a great answer if you can hear infrastructure. Yes. In here, manufacturing.
maybe like transportation of goods.
Agree. All of these are good. Maybe I'm asking a vague question, so I'll answer it. A middle class.
Oh.
The demand for these products and services are coming from usually a brand new or growing middle class. So if you have a middle class, guess what that middle class is starting to develop? Spending power, right? Think about it. A company like Starbucks, they're not entering less developed countries where there's going to be no demand. You guys, I spent $5 on an almond latte today. Couldn't believe it. I never get up to $5. $5, right? Lower middle class people at the poverty working level, not spending $5 on a latte. There's no demand for that good. Agree? Right? So a company like Starbucks going into a developing economy, they're capitalizing on a demand that wasn't there before. IKEA, when they enter a country for the first time, they're capitalizing on a demand that wasn't there before. From whom? From a brand new middle class, or a growing middle class, or a group of people that all of a sudden have new needs for goods and services, right? That's the cool thing about getting there first, okay? That you're entering a country before spending power is fully realized, okay? You're capitalizing on a brand new middle class that has brand new tastes, desires, wants of stuff. Okay, random question. You guys ever see that jelly in the supermarket?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Bon mama, the good mother is what it translates. Bon mama. You ever see this jelly? Yeah? Like, it's everywhere. Kroger, and you name the supermarket, high and low end. So Whole Foods, they sell it too. You see, you all know this brand with the red and white? Okay. This company is a legit French company. They make legitimate French preserves. How does this product get into, it's made in France, look at the label, made in France. How does it get into your local Kroger?
Because it's yummy.
It is. I agree with that. It is a good product. And it's not terribly expensive. It is definitely like priced for the mass markets. It's a little bit higher end than like your Smuckers or you know what are the lower end ones? Concord Grape, whatever that is. But how does it get there? Like physically, how does it get there? No, definitely by boat. By boat. It gets shipped.
What do you mean, like?
Like how does Kroger get this product from France on their shelves?
Like a distributor came in and said, try my product?
Ta-da, that's the answer. Exactly. A lot of the way that American products wind up in foreign retailers and foreign goods wind up here in our American stores is through these middlemen, these third parties, okay? So if you turn the label over on Bon Maman jelly or any foreign product, you might see distributed by, yeah, that's a distributor. Let me explain to you what a distributor does. A distributor usually speaks the language, understands the culture and the law and the regulations of the countries that they're doing business with, okay, the two countries. And they are the third party that gets goods from one country into another. When I was a buyer at Bloomingdale's, we were not large enough to produce a lot of like our own private label. So we would actually work with middlemen, importers, that would go and buy the stuff for us with their volume and get them into the country for us. And we were not having to deal with customs and language and all this kind of stuff. Think about it. You're a buyer and you're dealing with China. What time are China's hours? Yeah, when you're asleep, right? Do you want to do that? Do you want to deal with that? Do you want to get up at 2 o'clock in the morning? Like investment bankers do that kind of stuff. But that's the beauty of a middleman, a distributor, okay? Basically, they buy and sell the goods as a middleman. That's how lots of foreign goods get into domestic markets, okay? Distributors. So next time you see foreign goods in your grocery store, it's probably how that stuff got there, okay? Okay, so now the video. I love showing this video. I've watched this thing 100 times. He's such a good storyteller. If you ever want some like leisure/business reading, this is a good book. Onward, How Starbucks Fought for Its Life Without Losing Its Soul. And it talks a lot about how a lot of times when the research tells them don't do something, they did it anyway because it felt right, and they were actually able to like be the first to be successful at something that other companies failed at. Okay? Not to give away the Japan story. Okay, so I'm just going to show you, I'm going to do this full screen. Just 4-minute clip. He's at UCLA, he's a guest speaker, he's telling a lot of different stories. I just want to focus on the experience that he had opening this first Japanese store in Tokyo.
So 1996.
Oh. Sorry, no surround, but we'll use computer speakers.
The high cost of trade, the hidden cost of trade, could really be eradicated if you provide the kind of benefits that people couldn't get anywhere else, and you truly treated people.
Starts right here.
Now, in 1996,
Right.
this time, going for 1 year from that, we opened our first
Hold on. More volume. There we go.
store. And I can tell you that no one at Starbucks prior to that year had any international experience whatsoever. We didn't know what we were doing. And I know there's a lot of entrepreneurs in this room, and I think sometimes you just intuitively have to believe in your dream. You have to.
Sorry. More volume. Okay, it's all the volume we're going to get.
Really pursue things that you know are going to be right. So what did we do as a young company that was public for about 4 years? We went out and we hired a blue chip consulting firm. It doesn't matter what their name is. And we hired them, and they produced a book this thick with a huge bill, and they presented to our board, and they told us prior to 1996 that if you open in Japan, it'll be a disaster. Why? Well, first off, the cost of real estate in Tokyo is so expensive, and that you're going to have to build really small schools. Starbucks had a non-smoking policy since 1971. Their non-smoking policy will be a death market in Tokyo. And lastly, since 80% of your business is to go, no Japanese consumer of any kind is going to walk in the street with a cup of Starbucks coffee because a Japanese young person will lose faith if they eat in the street. So we looked at that report. We paid the bill, and we basically told them to get lost. And the reason is that, there are points in the development of the business where we really are tested. And we were tested back then as to whether or not the value, experience, and relationship we built with our customers was something that could travel overseas. And we learned something really, really important. First off, we opened that store in August of '96. And it was the worst day to open up a coffee store selling hot coffee because the humidity was so bad that when you got out of your hotel room, you needed a shower in about 5 seconds. And as we drove up, back up, that night, I got a voicemail saying that CNN was going to cover the opening live. And I was so nervous that we were going to get there, and it's going to be a camera crew of about 3 people. And as we're driving up to the store, there's a queue of hundreds of young Japanese people in the Ginza. And I turned to our partner, and I asked him if he hired experts. I was so convinced this can't be possible. We don't advertise. How can Starbucks travel halfway around the world in 1996? A young college student, Japanese, is at the front of the line. We cut the red ribbon. He runs to the front of the line. He could not speak a word of English. Not a word. And he said, double tall latte. And we knew then that something was really going on here that we didn't quite understand. Now, as the dean mentioned, we're in 44 countries now. And we learned a lot of interesting things. And perhaps the greatest lesson of all is that people around the world, it's very interesting to me, at a time in our lives when there's so much political angst and difficulties around the world, we're involved in a war of all things, is that Starbucks has opened 200 stores in development. We're all over the world, and you walk into these stores, and if you didn't see people perhaps dress differently, you didn't listen to different language, you would see exactly the same level of experience, almost a mirror image that you see in Western Starbucks stores. And what you see is the relevancy of the experience. And what we learn is that whether you're Chinese or from Jordan or Spain or Greece or in Kuwait where we have stores, that the human condition is the same. We all want the same thing. And as employees of a company, we want to be valued and appreciated. As customers of any kind of establishment, we want to be respected and valued, not for the money in your pocket, but for their participation in this experience. And if you do exceed the expectations of your employees, they will exceed the expectations of the customer. And what we've been able to do around the world is build a third place in every one of these countries. And it's quite different in China, where we're pioneering coffee and the coffee experience. And the experience we're having in Paris, we have 50 stores where coffee is part of the culture for centuries. But the hidden ingredient of it all is the fact that we have built a brand not based on advertising or promotion, but based on the experience. Now,
he goes on to talk about stuff not going to global, but I just think that is such an amazing case study. I really do, right? Where all of the things that we talk about, understanding the language and the culture and the consumption patterns, all points to do not do this. You have no business being in that country, and yet I think a lot of it has to do with social media and YouTube, right? Where why did that Japanese young person know double tall latte? Well, because he's been exposed to it in movies and music and who knows where, right, in social media. So he's right, the human condition is just so similar the world over because we're exposed to so many of the same things. Okay, cool. So, you guys, that is chapter 16, all right? Chapter 15 is what you guys have a handout from. Is everybody get one of these? Yeah? Okay, so I always feel like chapter 15 is a little bit redundant because it's about brand extensions. We've talked about brand extensions. I've shown you a million examples of brand extensions in a PowerPoint. So I want you guys, I do this every term, to just skim through chapter 15 on your own time, and I'm going to give you a little bit of extra weeks to do this. And just answer my 4 questions for me, okay? Tight, please. And you may hand this in, I don't wanna overwhelm you, I know some of you still need to finish your final projects for next week, so that's totally cool. But I will take this from you the week after, does that sound good? Yeah? That way you don't have to stress. If you wanna get this done and get it in early, great too, okay? I'm just asking you 4 easy questions from chapter 15. Make sure you do this assignment because you will see these topics on the final exam, okay? This is my way of kind of getting you into that chapter, all right? I'm gonna turn the quiz on from chapter 15. It's pretty straightforward. Did everybody get a map board for your project? Project is due next week. You guys, on your way out tonight, just poke your head in lecture 1, please, and look at the boards on the wall. There are like a gazillion of them. That's kind of how I want yours to look, okay? Which is just the product, front and center on the board. Clean, okay? Super clean. That's really what I'm, so take a look at lecture 1 on your way out the door.
I have one question.